There's so many factors that need to be considered when you're thinking about commuting a pension. Of course, there's the financial factors, but there's really many more factors that are just as important as the numbers. Everything from your own health and longevity expectations to your personal preferences for security versus flexibility.
Well, welcome back to Steadyhand's Coffee Break video series, where we share insights to help you, our Canadian clients and friends, navigate your financial future with confidence. Today's topic is a big one for many Canadians. Well, maybe not as many as in the good old days when many of us were covered by defined benefit or DB pension plans. But regardless of how many of us are impacted, it is a big decision when you face it. And this decision is whether you should take your pension in the traditional sense or do what's called commuting your DB pension and get a lump sum now. To help us break this down, I'm joined by Ashley Gordon, a certified financial planner and the Director of Education Development at FP Canada Institute. FP Canada is the professional organization that certifies financial planners in Canada and sets the standards for the profession. Ashley's role includes creating educational resources and planning content for established and aspiring planners across the country, the kind of content that helps planners help clients navigate complex decisions like the one we're tackling today. Ashley, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, David. Happy to be here.
Well, let's start with the basics. What does it mean to commute a defined benefit pension, and why is this such a significant decision?
So commuting a pension means taking the lump sum value of those future pension payments as a lump sum payment today. It's a big decision because once you make that decision, there's generally no going back. And you're taking on that investment and that longevity risk versus having the pension plan carry that risk for you in the future.
Well, who typically finds himself having to have to make this decision?
Good question. As you alluded to earlier, the DB pension is becoming more and more rare these days, but we do still see it commonly in public service employees, people who have been working for the government, or anyone who worked for a company that had a defined benefit pension plan at any point in the past. This often happens at retirement when you're ready to leave your pension plan, but it can also happen, not of your own choice. Maybe if you've been laid off, or if there's been a restructuring in the company, or you choose to leave your employer to go for a new opportunity.
Okay, well, let's walk through quickly some of the key factors that somebody in that situation should be weighing. Like, what should be on their radar when they come to this?
Great question, David. There's so many factors that need to be considered when you're thinking about commuting a pension. Of course, there's the financial factors. How much income might you be able to generate from that lump sum in the future compared to the amount of the pension payments that you would have received under the traditional option? But there's really many more factors that are just as important as the numbers. Everything from your own health and longevity expectations to your personal preferences for security versus flexibility. Another great factor that you need to consider is the stability of that pension plan. If you're coming from a government employer, that's perhaps not as big of a concern as if you were coming from, for example, Sears. Is that pension plan going to continue to exist for you throughout your retirement period is also something you need to consider.
For my generation, we think about Nortel and how we thought Nortel was this rock solid employer. Well, unfortunately, the people that were getting pensions from Nortel had to cut their pension expectations down. Now, there's a lot of other issues that you need to be thinking about here too. For example, if you have a pension, you get that pension paid to you while you live. But if you commute the pension today, this lump sum can in fact support potentially your income needs, but also potentially grow so that you have something at the end of your estate for your beneficiaries.
Absolutely. That's such an important factor, and it really complicates the apples to apples comparison of this decision. It's not just about how much money are you, the retiree, going to receive each year, but what other options do you have in the future? With a traditional DB pension, typically the payments end when the annuitant or the pension plan member or their spouse pass away. And that's the end of the income stream. And there's usually not a death benefit to leave for their heirs. When that's a primary concern for a pension plan member, the ability to leave some funds for the next generation, then the commuting option may be more attractive. It gives them some more flexibility as far as preserving some of that value for a future generation. But again, they have to remember that they're taking on all of that investment risk, all of that longevity risk as well. So it's really not a decision that can be made in isolation.
you could say it ultimately comes down to what matters most to the individual, how much they value control versus certainty, which is interesting. Are there any stats on the percentage of opportunities for commuting a pension that are actually commuted, or is that sort of beyond the realm?
I'm not sure that I've ever seen any stats on that. I would actually be very curious to look that up. But I do, from my practical sense, from working with clients, it is a pretty rare decision for somebody with a DB pension to choose to take on all of that risk for themselves. There's usually a specific reason, like that estate need that drives them to make that decision, or perhaps a shortened life expectancy is another scenario where we'll often see the commuting decision make a lot of sense. But generally, a lot of people really value the flexibility, or sorry, the security that comes with a DB pension. The guaranteed income for life, often with some inflation protection, is very valuable. And a lot of people seem unwilling to give up that security for a little bit more flexibility unless they have a very solid reason for that.
And you just raised a really important part of the calculation, if I could call it that, and that is whether your pension is indexed to inflation or not.
Yes, absolutely. That's another important factor. So again, along with considering the stability of that plan itself, it's also important to consider the options available for the traditional option to receive that income. Is there ability to select an inflation option that will increase that over time? If that's the case, if the pension itself is indexed, then you'll also need to be indexing the income expectations that you're evaluating on the commuting option as well, to make sure that both scenarios are keeping pace with the increase in the cost of living.
Well, let's make it real. Let's walk through a sample case, and let's choose somebody like Linda, a 62-year-old retiring teacher in Ontario. Can you give us some sort of a sense of how she would face this decision?
Great. I love this. I love this idea. It's always good to bring it to life with an example. And Linda, being a teacher, is sort of the go-to example that I think of when I think of a DB plan member, those teachers who have that guaranteed pension waiting for them at the end of their career. So let's say Linda was offered, she's 62, she's about to retire, and she's been offered, say, $45,000 a year in ongoing pension income from the plan. Or she can take the lump sum commuted value, which would be about $850,000 in Linda's case. Now, for Linda, who is a teacher, spent her entire life as a teacher, that $850,000 may seem like a very tempting, very large amount of money that she likely hasn't had the opportunity to have her hands on in the past. So really, Linda's going to have to take a careful review of her whole situation before she makes this decision, and not just run with the fact that $850,000 in her bank account would be great. The first thing that Linda needs to know is that entire $850,000 is not going to be available to her to do whatever she wishes with. A good portion of it will have to be put into what's called a locked-in account. And that's a special type of retirement account to hold pension funds that does come with some restrictions on how much she'll be able to take out of the account every year. So that the idea is that the pension funds will last for most of her lifetime. The portion that doesn't have to go into that locked-in account will also have some tax implications. So Linda will have to think about whether she has the funds available to pay those taxes, or if she'll have to use some of the money that comes from the pension to pay that tax bill, and then really think about what will be left for her after she's settled that tax bill, to really properly evaluate the two options against each other. Linda should also consider whether she has other sources of assets or income that she can use in her retirement. In the case of most teachers I know, they've always known that this pension was in their future, and not all of them save a lot of extra for retirement outside of that pension, knowing that that's coming down the pike for them. So Linda may be relying on this pension to be the primary source of her income in retirement. So it's a big piece of her puzzle and a very high stakes decision. And B, Linda may not have much, if at all, any experience investing her own funds for retirement. She's been offloading that work and that concern to her pension company for most of her career. So suddenly receiving nearly $1 million that she is now responsible for investing and responsible for the risk management of may not be within her capabilities if she's not an experienced investor. She may also need to engage the help of an investment advisor or other professionals to help her make this transition. And so she'd have to consider what would the cost of that advice, any tax services, anything else that goes along with managing that investment, she'll have to factor that into her decision as well. And then, of course, she is now taking on all of that investment risk that, previously the pension plan was holding for her. So if Linda is not an experienced investor, not very confident in her own risk tolerance, this is a lot for Linda to take on as she's facing down retirement, already in a big life transition, looking to likely slow down and simplify versus overcomplicate her life and learn a new skill such as investment management on her own.
We talked earlier about the viability of the actual pension organization. And in Linda's case, her Ontario teacher's pension is likely quite stable and secure. But if she'd been working at a private corporation, she'd need to factor that risk in as well. Now, are there other options? I think there might be another kind of a hybrid strategy that she could look at.
Absolutely. I think I'm glad that you brought that up, because often when we think about the commute or not commute decision, we're assuming that the client is going to, that the pension plan member is going to invest that money in the market, in mutual funds, in stocks or bonds. That's not the only option. They also have options like annuities, where they can functionally create that sort of pension style stream of guaranteed income, but still have a little bit more of the control over how much of the ultimate amount of pension assets are sort of annuitized, turned into that guaranteed stream, whilst preserving a little bit more for other goals. So if, say, it was very important to Linda that she could leave a bequest to charity at her death, but she doesn't have any other assets, she may find the option of commuting the pension, putting a large portion of it into an annuity that will give her that same stable, secured stream of income. She can choose inflation options. She can choose survivor benefits and things like that as well. And then keep some of the money onto the side to fund that estate goal, to fund a retirement trip around the world, whatever her goals may be. The downside generally with a traditional pension is that you only get your annual income. And so to try and get extras for any big expenses means that you're having to save up like you would have when you were working. And so there are some options where they can give you a little bit of both worlds, that security side of things and the flexibility. But again, in Linda's case, she's coming from one of the strongest pension plans that exists in this country. So even with an annuity, she is, comparing an annuity company to one of the big pension plans is a pretty comparable sort of risk profile for her. So it's something that would be even more attractive if Linda had concerns about her pension plan stability as well.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not an A or B decision. There's the possibility of further complicating the matter with a C option.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Ashley, thank you for your thoughtful perspective on all this. This is one of the most personal and high stakes decisions that Canadians who are in this situation would ever face. And we really appreciate your help in breaking it all down for us. And if anybody watching this video is facing this decision or knows someone who is, we strongly encourage you to speak with a certified financial planner. And you can learn more about what they do and find one at financialplanningforcanadians.ca. Steadyhand also hosts a directory of advice-only financial planners who operate on the basis of only providing advice. They do not manage money or sell insurance. And we'll provide a link to that website in the notes below. And if you'd like more insights on retirement income and planning strategies in general, please check out our retirement withdrawal guide, also linked below. And don't forget to subscribe for more coffee breaks just like this one. Ashley, again, thank you, and thank you all for watching.